Here's part one of the history of this house. It was built in 1880 as a farm and brewery and a business concern for the Tahon Lemaire family. And this is about the war period, the Second World War, particularly now, because I'm going down here, and in the house opposite, when we moved here in 2004, was a lady who must be in her 80s now, who could remember when the Germans arrived here. And she was describing how this road here, I'm now looking east, was full of refugees going to the coast, up to Étapes and Boulogne-sur-Mer, which is up that way. And she remembers distinctly the Stuka jets coming out of the sky up there in May 1940, and they'd come towards this video and strafe the poor refugees who would be blocking this road all the way. No shelter then for them to hide, no trees. Down the jets would come, machine gun them, woof, and up they'd go and come back again. And now look at it, it's all peaceful and quiet, but it does make you realise what happened and the effect it has still on people here. House next door, which is in what they call the Canadian style, which you may be able to see in a minute, was bombed in the liberation in 1944 by the Canadian Air Force, who liberated here with the RAF. And the house next door was a one-storey farm cottage attached to this house, and a bomb landed on it, killed the elderly couple in it. Their son, who's now in his 80s, was working in the fields at the back. The two outbuildings, which you'll see in a minute, were also destroyed in that bombing raid, which wasn't targeting this house. I'm just going through the door. Hold on a moment. Hold on. And we go through the house, and I'll show the outbuildings at the back here, which are also what they call Canadian style. One's there. There you go. There's the house, and there's the other one. And basically, they were saturated bombed this area because the railway junction at Provence, which is a short distance away, was being used by the Germans to ferry the V1 and V2 rockets, the rockets that went out into space and could take a whole street out in London, which fortunately were never launched from here, but were here ready to be launched. And the launch pad you can still see. So they saturated bombed this area because the Germans, the buggers, were trying to take them back to Belgium, where they did launch some against Paris and of course to London, where they wreaked havoc. When the Canadian Air Force landed, Provence, which got a population of 2,000, 3,000 maybe, had 400 deaths in one weekend. They thought they'd be lynched, but they weren't. They were welcomed by the locals who said that had to be done, we had to be liberated. And the devastation was astronomical around Provence railway station, which was then quite an important railway junction, saturated with military trains of the time. And there's a lovely book in the local library which shows the RAF stenographers photographing the bombs being released from the planes, which would have been over there, about 2 kilometres, 3 kilometres, and they photographed and they tried their very best to make sure the bombs didn't hit what they call collateral damage, but of course that was going to happen, and there was nothing much they could do about it really. But when they did come down onto the ground, they repaired, reparations, they rebuilt. There's a whole village up near St Pol, Sauternoise, which is 14 kilometres from here, a whole village called Siricourt, which had been completely flattened because it was a store for the bombs, and it's called the Canadian Village. And unfortunately can't show that to you on this. Behind this building here is the fields where the 240, 250 First World War soldiers were billeted, and 4 officers were billeted in the house. And you would have been able to hear the battles of the Somme, the gun battle, because the front was only 6-7 kilometres from here in the First World War. But of course in the Second War they reached the coast in no time, and if it wasn't for the Channel they would have been in London for lunch, and it would have been a completely different story. But it does explain why certain events happened after the war and people decided that getting together and working out problems together was better. And as de Gaulle had pointed out, the next war, if there was one on European soil, would be probably nuclear and would be over in half a day. But enough of that heaviness. The sun's high in the sky. There's darling Dee Dee waiting for a tasty morsel to come up into her jaws. She had one yesterday, apparently. And so I'm going to love you and leave you. Hope you're all staying safe and enjoying the sun. It's now about 6:30 here. Look at it. It's absolutely fantastic. Keep safe, be nice to each other, and get vaccinated. And goodbye. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. All's well, and I hope all is well with you.